But actually acknowledging everything and making a person feel fully heard is an incredible gift.
Today on the show, we have Seattle-based comedian Bridget Quigg. Bridget is an event host, writing coach, and team builder who infuses the principles of improvisational theater into all of her work. This is The Career Cue, the podcast focused on helping you navigate the signals in your career to keep you growing and moving forward in business and in life. Here's today's host, Stacey Harris.
So welcome to The Career Cue. Bridget, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Stacey. I'm very happy to be here.
I have been looking forward to this conversation because this is an area I have this very kind of remote fascination in. But I don't know that I'm brave enough. But we're going to get right into that because let's face it, when people hear the word improv, it freaks them out. Mm-hmm. I'm putting my hand up right now because I am certainly one of those people. We had talked offline about asking someone to do improv might be the equivalent of asking them to do some public speaking.
Sure.
Which it has been researched that most people would like to die versus get up and do public speaking.
Right. And then I replied that this is like getting to do public speaking without any plan, which is even closer to death.
Oh, my gosh.
Actually.
Right. Like jump straight in. Like death, whatever. That's a cakewalk. So, okay. 3 words. Improv is scary. Yes. Fully admit that. Improv. So what is improv? I mean, there's a lot of assumptions that people make about what it is.
Yeah.
But what is it? What is it not? Tell everyone what it is.
Well, I think improv is a frame of mind is how I like to think of it, more than a performance piece, if you will. So some of the things are, you have to be funny, you have to be clever, you have to be quick. And on TV, when they cut and paste all their loveliest parts of their improv shows together, that's what people think. But the reality is improv shows are a little messy and people are kind of stumbling through them in a way. But those who are very good at it, obviously, it looks very polished. But there's all these rules to being on stage in a group or with another person improvising that allow all sorts of magic to happen. But it's the rules that the actors live by. They're actually very fascinating and apply, I think, to everything in life. And that's what I'm most interested in. I call it, the principles of improv. I think are fascinating.
So let's actually just go straight into those. So let's talk about those principles. It sounds like you said, it's what they live by. And so it probably, because of that anchor, allows them to go into any situation, right? And so that's part of our conversation today is improv is life, right? So let's peel back the layers on those principles so people can get a little bit more comfortable and maybe take the shine off the scariness that is improv. So what are those principles? Let's get going.
Well, there's lots of them, but there's certain ones. There's 3 in particular I've picked out that I think apply really well to business world stuff, and everybody can handle 3 thoughts. And I just want to say something that is interesting. If you think about the principles of improv, technically, an improv stage is one of the safest places to be in the world. You will be the most accepted. You will be the most heard. You'll have the opportunity to express yourself. All these things, it's actually a wonderful place to be. But then again, people are paying to watch you. That happens. That's awful. So we'll just take that part out. I love this book, Truth in Comedy. It's from the Chicago School of Improv and it has a bunch of wonderful principles. The 3 that I grabbed from it that I use a lot in these sessions I lead are one is over-acceptance. So it's a weird thing. Over-acceptance, what's that mean? But, Chris Farley of, in a van down by the river, big guy, and if you offer Chris Farley a beer, he's going to, I love beer. I love beer so much. I'm going to drink 50 beers right now, crush them on my head, and I'm going to go get some more. Everything for him just blew up huge. And he was very funny and wonderful that way. And all somebody said was, hey, Chris, you want a beer? So he had this way of not just accepting what was given to him, but actually magnifying it, making it glorious, making it wonderful. So that's that trick if you're on stage. If you can take, somebody hands you a little scrap of paper, it's like, oh my gosh, it has the answer to the secret code. Now you're off on your way. So taking things and amplifying them. But I put it in business world, I just call it acknowledging everything. We have this habit in meetings or in awkward situations or things like, I'll listen to those 3 things you said, but I don't really like the 4th or the 5th. So I'm just going to focus on those 3 and pretend like you didn't say those. But actually acknowledging everything and making a person feel fully heard is an incredible gift to them. So the concept of over-acceptance, I think, drives that home better than just acceptance.
Yeah.
Yes and is one a lot of people have heard and improv, yes and. But it is the idea that you don't only just say yes to what you're hearing, as in And people have trouble with that. Like, I'm not going to say yes to everything. It's like, you don't have to say yes, but you need to acknowledge and accept that person has that thought. That is really what yes is. And the and part is you are now going to answer back. You are going to reply. You are going to give your spin on it, add your creativity, and you're going to build on it. That's what I call it. So acknowledge everything, build on it. And then I love this concept from improv of make your partner look good. So when you're on stage, you are not thinking about yourself, actually. Primarily, you should be looking at everyone around you and trying to make them look like a freaking genius. And that's what I call it, treat them like a genius. And that concept comes up a ton in the book, Truth and Comedy. It's just to totally embrace the people you are playing with and just love everything that comes out of their mouth. And that will make for awesome comedy shows, whatever.
Right.
Not all improv is funny.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just building stories together, playing together. But one thing about not treating them like a genius, this is one, because there's another concept in improv about blocking, is a thing where basically if I'd say, oh my gosh, Stacey, I love your purple hat. And you're like, I'm not wearing a hat. If we're on stage, probably the place will die of laughter. Like, oh, it's so funny. She's wearing a hat. Ha, ha. Now we have to start over, though. The scene just died. If you had said, oh, my gosh, I just got at the Goodwill. They're having a super sale. I'd be like, oh, my gosh, maybe I'll find a yellow one. And pretty soon we're going to a party that's all hats that are velvet. I don't know. Just like everything spins forward. Yeah.
Yep.
Blocking, it's over. And in business and in our own lives, we block. We block. I mean, the blocking of ourselves. I teach writing courses as well, like creative writing courses. It's all about loving your muse. That's your muse is this gentle little person inside you that has gobs of stuff to offer. And we just freaking pound that back all the time by blocking ourselves.
Wow.
So once again, it's a religion, I'm telling you. Join the cult, Stacey. No, I'm just kidding. But it's beautiful stuff. And there's more things we can talk about. If you want to digest that for a moment, I can pause there.
Yes. And I'm glad that we actually got those three concepts out of the way, or those three principles, because I know that that will be peppered throughout our conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
But I actually want to back the truck up a little bit. I want to talk about how improv has changed your life, because the energy that you're exuding right now seems like you came out swinging as a baby. Like, improv is me, improv is my life.
Yeah.
You were, my assumption that your parents were kind of like, well, this kid has to go into improv because
she's a little crazy.
Yeah. No, just the energy, right? So,
right.
Is this something that
right? Well, I think sometimes our greatest challenges are our greatest gifts, of course, in life. And I came from this very conservative household, like as in Catholic, Republican, super conservative. And I will say that was also a very funny household. Like, being funny was a prized thing. And I wasn't necessarily always considered the funny one. I was sort of quiet, if you will. So going into college, I tell this story of how my dad, I went to Stanford, which is in my family considered a very liberal school, right? So my dad actually said to me before I left for school, go down there and change them. And I was supposed to be this Catholic conservative movement of one, taking on the entire campus of people who drank and had sex and, voted for Democrats. I mean, my dad literally had a Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II picture on his desk growing up my entire childhood, and those were his heroes. And I totally respect them. That's cool. It just, what I found in college, and I'll tell later, I started studying improv, and I got the sense of like, oh, this is way more me. This is how I roll. I feel so much more relaxed. I'm making new friends I really like. I'm more comfortable. And we can talk more about that. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So was it at Stanford that you kind of, it sounds like, you were like, oh, this is more my speed, or, you said you felt more comfortable. So was the introduction, did the door open to improv at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my sophomore year, Stanford started doing these sophomore seminars. It was this new thing, and they were all like funky, one-off kind of classes. So in my case, I took Improv, the Jazz of Theater, from this very brilliant woman named Patricia Ryan, who's a big star in the improv world. And we did not actually perform improv. She wouldn't let us. We read every book written about improv, and we went to shows. We'd drive up to San Francisco, go to shows. And that was what I needed, though, because just the concept of not blocking blew my mind. I was raised to block. There were all these people when I left for college who I was not supposed to be friends with, right? My dad didn't even want me to go to Mass on campus. Like, that's how conservative.
Wow.
Because they're liberal Catholics at Stanford. But I mean, my dad was a great guy, but I mean, you just get the sense of like the closing of ideas versus, and he was very funny and loving. So at any rate, when I started to study improv, even the people in the improv class with me became some of my dearest friends. They weren't Catholic. And we'd go to San Francisco, go to shows, and like this whole just sort of, way of looking at the world where every person was interesting to me now. I could be curious about them. I could get to know them. I could learn from them. I could have fun with them. And it just was fun. It just goes back to fun. It was so fun.
Clearly, that was a pivotal moment in your life and opened up a door that you didn't even know existed, it sounded like.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It was totally mind-blowing.
For that experience to have then opened up a career for you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I would imagine that there wasn't this perfect job description when you got out of college that said, that you read and you're like, oh, this is me, right?
Yeah.
And that you've actually probably written your own job description.
Of course.
Yeah. Which is great, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we really want is to be able to have this custom, very unique job description that is us. So, and allows us to do our best work because it's stuff that really kind of touches us at the core versus trying to fit into someone else's ideal of what that should be.
Yes, I think that's very true because I have a lot of friends who are, still in troupes, or there's this group called the Applied Improvisation Network. It's a whole group of people who are just into nerding out on improv. And we have international conference every year. There's local groups. Seattle has one that I go to. We have meetings every 2 months that are really fun. But the point is, everybody takes it and uses it in different ways. And I've realized one thing that I am most interested in, I think, is bringing it to people for whom it is so frightening and making it really low lift, really fun, really easy. Nobody's on the spot. Whereas maybe someone else is great at polishing the skills of a touring improv troupe. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very comfortable in my bringing it to the people role where I think I can relate to it best myself, the principles of it. And to business people. I see the need.
Yeah. So you've obviously done some work with in a corporate environment so have you returned to Stanford?
All the time. No. Yeah, I've gone on to do a lot of theater. And so I do one-woman comedy shows. My most recent one was called Techlandia. And, absolutely, certainly picking up the guitar after college and learning to play it. And now I've written more than 100 songs in my lifetime. And being in improv troupes, being in comedy groups, I've done all these things, and all of it I can point back to that class I took my sophomore year that gave me this sense of I should absolutely let out and share every possible creative thought I have if I want to.
So it sounds like you might be one of those people that gets up in the morning and says yes and.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a big thing. I try to, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because then I think at the base of yes and also is this tremendous compassion for the person with whom you are interacting. It's like, where is that coming from? Even if people are sort of terrible and unpleasant and mean.
Yeah, right.
Yes is actually just being like, okay, I'm going to seek to understand what you're offering me, quote unquote, even though, I want to just block it. Be far easier to be like, eh. Yeah, but you said going back to Stanford, I do have a lot of friends still who are actively improvising and doing stuff. Because I played in the summer with at the Stanford has an alumni camp, and we performed once a week as a troupe. I did that for 4 summers.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
fun.
It was, fun, a lot of fun.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about our audience are people that are everything from currently in college, thinking about post-college careers, to mid-career, and even someone that's maybe a little bit further along in their career and just wanting to make sure that their run-to-home plate is going to be the best that they have.
Yeah.
How can anyone study improv, or can anyone kind of integrate it into their life? And can you be too old? Can you be too young? Can you, are there any restrictions around this?
Yeah. Well, I first say I like the way you use the word study, because I think that I used that on a slide recently. I was at Seattle Startup Weekend, and instead of, I just often would put why improv ? But I put why study improv, because I think it takes it like that distance you talked about at the beginning, just sets it one more step away. Obviously, I think it's great at any time. I've taught 5th graders and I've taught grown-ups and, people who are retired. So there's always something people take away from it. And the more you play with it and the more you do it. And actually, being in a troupe and getting coached is wonderful. And there's people who do it on a very casual level. But, starting a scene in the middle is one of the concepts of improv. Like, don't sit here and go, oh, well, here we are by a tree in the forest. It's just like, this tree's really tall. Oh, look, they're coming. Get into the scene. That's also just a great way to live your life, And another, no-no on stage a lot of times is just asking questions. Like, oh, hey, what are you doing? So you just lobbed the ball over to the person over there. That's another interesting thought. So the more you study it, the more you learn those little tricks, fully committing to the scene, just in period, just totally be who you are.
And that applies to everything in life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
You can walk into the middle of a conversation and be expected to pick up where everything is happening, or maybe thoughts in a meeting of, rather than just lobbing a question out there, having that, more thought behind it. And if everyone, back to what you said earlier, is making the other people or other person in the scene, and your scene is in the boardroom, in the war room, from a technology perspective, is how do you make the other people around you look like geniuses? And if everyone has that approach,
that's the thing. Yep.
Everyone is going to look just as great,
right,
and be able to feel heard. Right, and valued. Yeah,
I mean, it's a bit utopian, but the idea is there. And I wrote a proposal recently for something, and I said, the point of improv is not to be funny. The point of improv is to make the person you are with feel amazing every time. And that was just sort of like, and I remember the person was like, "Wow, that's really, I appreciate that."
Yeah,
there's a sales team. Because what do salespeople want? They want that person to feel fabulous and say yes.
Yeah.
So
and sign on the bottom line. Well, so to that. You said utopian, but perhaps it's even just going in with the original intent.
Yes.
Right? That may not be the end result, but if you go in with the intent most of the time, you'd be surprised perhaps with the result of it. Yeah.
Well, just having someone feel truly heard, they'll love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period.
Right?
Yeah. You acknowledged everything I just said. Oh, wow. That's great. Made my day.
See, look at me. I'm getting better at improv. Anyway.
You're a natural. Everyone is.
Okay, so I'm actually just personally interested. I have attempted, or I have been involved in improv in the corporate space before as a kind of a morale event, but team building exercise.
Yes, team building.
And I will say, in looking back, in hindsight's always, that beautiful 2020, but I walked away from there feeling like I was still white-knuckling the edge of the cliff while I was in it, because I was afraid of making a fool of myself in front of my peers.
Fair enough.
I was probably a little more, if I had have been with my friends, I might have felt a little bit more comfortable, because I feel like I can be a little bit more goofy. So how do you coach your clients on making sure that they can truly let go and be open to improv, but at the end of the day, we still have to walk into a meeting with them, these people again tomorrow morning. So
it's like the holiday party.
Oh my
gosh, too much alcohol.
No, that's a new episode, right? Like, oh my gosh, that's improv.
Yeah, exactly.
But so with your business clients, like, how do you coach them in making sure that they can fully embrace the idea of improv, but making sure that I hate that these words are coming out of my mouth, but that they're professionally appropriate.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, no, I completely respect that. Yeah. We do have natural filters in all of us that will make us, be pretty cautious if we need to be. But I'm very into, when I do, especially the group sessions, I have this sort of rhythm with which I start, where I make them do a little warm up, just a very small low lift activity. Then I'll tell my story, low lift activity. And then almost certainly, like, the next thing is what I call my rules, and that is one of the other brilliant teachings of improv, is the more rules and structure you put around a situation, often the more creative people will be. It's like, okay, Stacey, you can't use your left hand and all you want to do is peel an orange. Go. So you're going to go around to everybody asking for help or something. You know what I mean? Like, instantly you're very clear, but you're going to create with that. You're going to be so with the rules, my rules, number one is I have 3 as the magic number.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
Long history of content marketing, so I'm all about 3s. Be average. And I have written here, you can see that, bore me with your boringness and lack of creativity. Let me down. Go for underwhelming. Show me how lame you can be. Like, I keep sending that message because people stop the moment they think they have to be excellent. Show's over. It's like, that be average. And I say it over and over. Or I'll joke, if somebody does something really funny, I'm like, I love how average that was. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I'm always trying to remind them that it is not about being excellent. And I say, the moment you try and be excellent, I'm going to notice, I'm going to make fun of you. So please don't.
Okay.
The second one is to celebrate failure. So be average, celebrate failure. And I have this bow. It's called the circus bow. I learned this from Matt Smith, who's a local improviser here in Seattle. And who knows who he learned it from. But it's a very big, ridiculous, arms open, huge grin, deep bow, back up. It's the circus bow. And people do it in the classes. So what I say is, you will feel like you're failing at moments. I'm going to push you a little further than you. I said, please jump in and just take a big bow. We will all applaud, and I will bow with you, whatever. And then people are kind of like, ha, ha. And then like within 2 minutes, somebody's taking a bow. And you'll see it because I put them in groups. So they're not with the whole group. They're just in their small group, and you'll see everybody laughs and claps and everything. So it gives some people the way to like shake off their feeling of like, and I remind them, it's like, there is no failure in this class. It's the feeling of failure I want you to just let out.
So that is key right there. It's the feeling of failure. It's not that you have failed.
Correct.
It's the feeling.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, talk about a blocker.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I failed.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to stop.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Totally normal.
I feel like I should be paying you, Bridget, because this is amazing. Okay. All right.
Life coaching. Okay.
Do you know how many people are going to be doing that circus bow? I love that.
It's fantastic. Well, it's sweet. I worked with HR, so Society for Human Resources Management group for Washington State recently at a conference they had. And my friend texted me later who brought me in. She's like, we have seen so many failure bows today. It's been really fun.
Oh, that's
where people are
awesome.
just like taking their bows. So that was great feedback.
That's great.
And then the last thing I have is for one of my rules, and it's a silly rule, it sounds silly, but it's do not think. It totally plays into be average, but it's just a different way for some people to think about it. So, and I will poke fun at you if you think. Just do it and do it right away, whatever it is you want to do. Because when you're thinking, you're actually denying the part of you that's already ready to go. And in fact, that part of you has something. So this is getting really philosophical if you want to get into that deep stuff with me. But I truly believe that there is a wave of creativity we are all able to tap into at any point. We're all human. We all have it. And that our particular version of it is unique to us. It's always available. It is endless and deep. And the world needs to hear it, actually. That when we deny our connection to our creativity, because it's ours, yours and mine are actually different. We may clue into the same things, but you are going to express it in a way that I need to hear or the world needs to hear. That the more we can let go and trust that the next thing we're going to say is actually what the room needs to hear, even if it feels a little awkward or different, but it feels right. I think there's a lot of beauty in that. I mean, you could debate it 100 different ways, but on a very fundamental level, to seek that, I think, and that's what the do not think also gives into, because it's just a shame all the judgment we place on ourselves, and the world is missing out on
Well,
us.
and because, in school and in business, you're told that you have to think.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
go and
over.
think about that. Or, what do you think? You know what? What happens if I don't? Right?
I think I nailed it on the first one, so I'm done. Thank you. That's great. No, I was just working with a company on their theme for this convention they're putting together. And, I, of course, dutifully brainstormed a list of, 25 options. But I really liked the first one, and I knew it. Actually, I think it was the second one. I was like, oh, that. And on my gut level, I was like, and what's going to the meeting on today to be discussed is that one that I was like, I think that's the one.
Yeah.
But they needed to receive 25 in order to feel like I cared, which I totally respect.
Right.
But it's just interesting. I think there's a beauty and efficiency in being like, no, this is right. Let's just go. Let's do it.
I love that, because we may not feel like we have a ton of opportunity to do that, but ultimately it usually comes down to that one or first couple of things.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
with life in general too. But typically, if you're in a corporate space, if you really think about it, you don't need the rule of three, like
and also
keep going back to that.
And then going back to like be average, like allow yourself to sit there and think of 25 if that's what you need to do right now. That's also okay. It's a whole bunch of it's all okay. Yeah. But trying to seek that purity of
And so
creativity.
it sounds like your class rules just kind of strips everything back to everyone's coming in with their own experiences and their own assumptions.
Sure.
And their own insecurities.
Big time.
Right?
Yep.
So they're all walking in this big line together, coming in from different places. But ultimately, you're putting this, it's okay, we're starting blank.
Yes.
Right? Like, don't overthink it. Be average. Don't be funny. Like, just be. So, Bridget, before we go to the break, let's actually, what is the one thing that people can do today? Like, they're in their car, they're on the train, they're on the bus, or, they're just like, how can I bring more improv into my life? Because we don't have a lot of time in life. We're always rushing. But what is it that we can do?
Well, it's when the word listen comes to mind, which sounds so like you think I'd tell you to tell a joke, but that's actually the whole point of what I'm trying to say. One thought I had was someone could just spend just even 10 more seconds listening to somebody than they think they should, just to make that person feel really heard and maybe learn something from that person that they might not normally. The flip side of that, and you said only one, but listen to maybe themselves and something that they think they want or they want to say and actually say it or do it and just, or at least consider it and consider that a win. But listening either to yourself or someone else just a little longer today than to honor an idea, to honor a thought that's in your world.
Well, and we can all do that right away.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, even if I'm going to have one conversation today where I listen for 10 more seconds or I listen to myself for 10 more seconds. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, Bridget's actually going to share with us some of the rules, but also the games that she uses when she works with her clients. So we will be right back.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the show notes at thecareerq.com, where you can also subscribe to the podcast and sign up for our newsletter.
Welcome back. We have Bridget Quigg in studio with us today, and Bridget's here to talk about that scary word called improv, and she's actually making it way less scarier than it sounds. I want to catch myself. I had actually referred to the people that you work with as clients, but they're more students, aren't they?
So.
Right?
Yeah.
So because we can all afford to be students in life. And taking an improv class or a workshop or joining a troupe means that you're learning.
It
right?
absolutely does.
And we all just want to be students to learn as much as we possibly can. So, okay, I caught myself. I'd love to continue to use the term student if it's okay with you.
I'm in it.
Okay.
I'm with it.
So as a student, what could I expect as to come in and do a workshop with Bridget Quigg?
Well, I designed them with the thought of the 80-20 rule applied to participation. So my goal as the instructor, educator, leader is to do 20% of the time things for you guys, and then you should be active in playing, if we like to call it improv, 80% of the time. So like I mentioned before, I sort of weave in and out of explaining the theory, explaining the rules, while people take a break and start a warm-up game, get them into groups, whatever. And one of my favorite warm-up games that I had mentioned to you before we started is very simple. It's called Zip, Zap, Zop. People listening to this will be like, oh, yeah, I did that once in an improv course, whatever. It's very basic, but it's full of lessons. That's the amazing thing about it. So I get people in the groups of 6 to 10. They're in a circle, and they're just passing a clap. It seems like the simplest thing in the world. And the first person, it's a very particular, you want to point your clap at somebody and say zip. Then you point the next one, zap, zop. And people should be popcorning the clap around the circle, which takes some thought. You don't want to go to the same person all the time. The thing that I love about this game is you need to be ready when the clap comes your way, right? If you are spaced out, if your hands are in your pockets, if you're feeling a little closed physically, you are not going to be ready for that clap, and you are going to slow down the group. So what I do is I have them start by practicing it, and you have to be, I call it ready position. Your hands are open and available. And then I mess with them by moving it up to, I'll say like, okay, let's take a break. And I tell them about my story or something. Now we're going to play something called Alphabet Zap, which you and I could kind of play it now. So what is Alphabet Zap? It is when you start the same game, but this time you're passing the clap right through the alphabet. Apple, banana, coconut, dog, fudge maker. I don't know. The word fart actually came to mind. I was like, I'm not going to say, I'll just say it. Look I thought. Did you see how I thought? You watched me, didn't you?
Yes.
I'm just going to say it next time. But the idea, and people groan a little bit, it's going to be hard, But it's really wonderful, of course, because now they're on hopefully they've warmed up, they've got their hands out of their pockets, and it becomes a race. Because the key is, if you're really physically ready to accept and deliver a clap, your group will be the fastest group. Anybody's closed off, doubting themselves, stopping, they're going to be the slow group. So especially sales teams just dive into this because they have to win.
Right.
Zebra, we won, But it's hard. It's hard because you're like J, K, oh my gosh, In some groups you see them counting the alphabet out together. But it's very bonding.
Well, and just as an individual participant in a group like that, in order to make other people great, you need to know what letter you're on.
Yes.
Or possibly even thinking about the
attention.
next letter just in case someone zaps you.
Yeah.
Right?
What you'll find is as you're in the group, you're kind of not able to comprehend that because you're kind of like, oh, he just said elephant. That's a good call. I don't know if I would have thought of elephant, and so that naturally you're actually highly distracted. So you just have to, and you have to just be like, okay, I got G, garage. Yeah. And off you go. And you're like, oh, thanks, I got through that. But it's a little bit of adrenaline. It wakes people up.
Yeah.
And it is a team bonding activity for sure. And we did it, Zip Zap Zop, we played almost every time before a show. It's the first thing we did because everybody just arriving, people arriving late, whatever. You get the group together and you just go as fast as you can, and and it's really fun.
Well, I mean, that's a game that people could play tonight at dinner.
Absolutely.
Right? Around the table or, with friends this weekend. And gosh, there's got to be hilarity that comes out of that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Without even trying.
Well, people are like, do I zap or I zip? I don't, like they just get lost. So it's inevitably funny, Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's
okay.
very sweet.
So everyone's going to be able to zip, zap, zop.
Darn right.
Either, perhaps in a team meeting or over dinner. But when your students get into the core of your program, do you have a couple of games that you'd be able to kind of chat about really quickly and kind of the overall, framework of what those are?
For sure. I have a number of games, and I do tie them to the concepts. And I just want to say one thing. In my classes, before I start the games, a lot of times people like a plan. A lot of times I recognize there are people in the group who would like to know what's going to happen. And I'm kind of a stinker because a lot of times I say, well, we're going to play a game. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the game and how we liked it. Then we're going to have some more fun. And then we're going to talk about that fun. And it'll be really fun. You'll be fine. Don't worry. But I do acknowledge that people like to know what's coming. So for example, this one game I do, it's called Gift Giving, which just sounds so simple and weird. But the idea is that I line people up family reunion water balloon toss style. So they're across from each other in straight lines. So you have a partner across from you. And there's one person who is the gift giver and one person is the gift receiver. And this is on that concept of over-acceptance or, really saying yes to what you're given. And the person who's giving the gift, physically, they can pull it out of their pocket, pretend they pulled it off a shelf, picked up off the ground. They physically, silently hand something to the person across from them. So it could be big, small, whatever. And the person across from them is going to say, "Oh, Stacy, a wedding ring. I love it. Thanks." Or, "Oh, Stacy, a banana. I was so hungry. Thanks." So not even I was so hungry. You just need to name it and say thank you. So we start with that. That's the first layer of that game. And people are hilarious. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, a watermelon with no seeds." I don't know. They for some reason, and I pause and we debrief after that. And I'll say, "Did anybody struggle to name what?" And usually people are like, "No, not really. Like I had so many ideas." It's like, of course you did.
Yeah.
You're a genius, haha. So I'm like, and I say, recognize that you could sit here for an hour and continually hand this up, and it would never end. Your brain is going to give you material because you're getting. And then I take it to another level, and I have them switch places. And now the recipient is now the giver. They give once again a silent gift. Now the other person says, "Oh, a box of chocolate. Thank you. I love it." And the other person now, which is how we raise the bar, raise the thinking level. Now the person has to say, "Yes, I picked that up on my way here just for you." Or, "I know you love chocolate with raisins. I find it disgusting." Whatever it is. But people, just that one extra line. So, I gave you a gift. You acknowledged it, received it. Now I have to respond to you. And it just keeps the brain moving that one extra step. And it's just hilarious to watch people. I mean, one lady was like, "I just got a picture of Mai Tais." That was the last one I was at. And I was like, well, you have a beautiful imagination. I love it that's what you got. So it just, gift giving really is fun for people.
Yeah.
It's a very fun game.
Well, and it sounds like it just keeps giving, right? Like you said, that it can keep going. And I'm sure it also... it reinforces that fact that you have to hear what the person had said to you, right? And that is one thing we respond. Yeah.
One thing we debrief is also, hey, gift givers, how was it to hand something to that person and have them say something? Did they ever say what you expected? "Oh yeah, one time they got a couple of." They ever say, "Yeah, no, I didn't know they were going to say that." You know what I mean? Like that's not what I was thinking at all. And I love that part of perhaps the most.
That's great.
So that's
one of the things before we get on to the next one is you use the word fun.
Yes.
A lot. And I love that. And it goes back to what we had started the episode out with is that you had said it's not about being funny.
No. Yeah.
But it is about having fun.
I do think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's just that remembering that hilarity ensues.
Yes.
Right. Inevitably.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially when people are not overthinking and they allow that creativity to flow.
Yes.
But that the goal is not to be funny.
Definitely not.
It is to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal is to honor your first thought, actually, probably more than anything.
Yeah.
And listen and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. So
okay.
Game number 2.
So this other game I like is called Party Planner. And it is, so what I do is I get people in groups of 3 in this case. And one person is the party planner. The other 2 people are sort of the supporting actors in the party planning. And what I say to my party planners once we figure out who those people are, I say, you have the opportunity to create the best party you've ever created in your life. You have no budget limitations. You have no time limitations. You can charter planes. You can get cruise boats, whatever you want. And it could be your grandma's 90th or your dog's first birthday. I don't care. What do you want to have for a party, right? So just think about that. And that's what I tell. And then I tell them to go earmuffs, which is, close your ears so you can't hear. I put them in a corner if it's physically easy to do that. Bring everyone else over. And I say, all right, you guys, they're going to start trying to sell you on their party planning idea. I want you to say the equivalent of every time on yes, but. So you're going to hear what they say, like, yes, balloons, but beware that some people might choke. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, if you do a plane, some people are a little afraid of flying. So you just want to consider that. Just chip away at their ideas just a little bit. And so we get everybody back together and they go through that first layer. And at the end of it, I say, okay, party planners, how's it going? And it's hilarious because some people are like, it's going great. Because I don't give a crap what they're saying. I'm just have this great party. I'm so excited about it. But other people will be like, it's a little slow. They seem to be pretty concerned about people, in wheelchairs or people who don't like to fly. Or we've really been struggling over here. I'm like, okay, earmuffs again. I bring people over. It's kind of obvious what I'm going to do next, but it's really interesting to see how it goes. I say, okay, this time you are yes-anding. You are building on everything they say. So they want balloons. You know a guy who makes the biggest balloons in America. They want a hot air balloon. Let's do them every country, in the world. Like just blow it up, make it crazy. So we go back and literally the volume level in the room is completely different. People have started gelling and laughing and playing in a way that they weren't when they were getting chipped away at. And in some ways, like, that's a party planners, and they're like, I think I kind of lost control of the party. I was like, I don't even think I'm in charge of it anymore. Because the other people start getting pumped and like want to. So that's one thing I say to them when I send them back out is like, remember, you're acknowledging what they're saying and you're building on that. I want you to be very specific. I want you to hear them. So there's a lot of little ways to do it. But it just, and then we talk about that. It's like, how was it? It was fun.
Yeah.
We want to go to Italy. We're going on a wine tour. That was the most recent one. They were going to Italy.
Well, and it goes back to that acknowledgement and the support that someone could receive with the yes and versus the blocking of the yes but.
Yes.
Two words,
yeah.
right? Each statement has two words, or each start of those statements has two words. And the end result can be so incredibly different from each other based on whether it's and or but.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And people get it kind of quickly, but the physical experience of going through it, it's like they kind of have to be good sports. It's like you kind of know it's coming, but they see it. They're like, oh, wow, that was a lot more fun. Yeah. So, anyways.
Okay. So I have already admitted that I wasn't necessarily a great student.
I doubt this, actually.
Well, both academically and in improv. So what would you encourage people to do, like, as we diving headfirst into 2017 and, should everyone check out an improv class or,
have me come teach you improv. No.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
Well, the principles are the same everywhere you go. Different teachers have different vibes and styles. Like I said, I think I'm very interested in getting people who are petrified to just take baby steps until, by the end of a session with me, a lot of times they're kind of in scenes, which is something they would never have said yes to at the beginning. But yeah, there's improv troops everywhere. There's books you can read. There's various trainers, I'm sure, in anyone's hometown. But just learning the concepts. I mean, all you do is read a book and put yourself through the torture of that. You know what I mean? As opposed to actually making yourself do it. Go to an improv show.
So
watch it.
Yeah.
And basically, if you just listen to everything I said, look for how they're listening to each other. Look for how they're physically moving things, and the other person honors that physicality and how they name things. I mean, that's and also look for people who block and watch what happens. It's an amateur move. It happens a lot. Not a lot. When people are young and they're improv, it's a safe thing and it's funny. Yeah. To block. Yeah. But then the show's over.
Well, and so if you're looking to do something this, on a Friday night,
just go to
check out some of the improv shows that are in the area, and you don't. My experience in attending improv shows is that it can be interactive with the audience.
Yes.
Too, right? Yeah. Which, if you're in the audience, it's usually dark. Yes. So you've got that safety of the cloak of darkness. And, but you're often asked to throw out some ideas. Yeah. And some of those ideas that got tossed out, like just the idea that's said out loud with their outside voice is hilarious, right? Or something that you would never even consider. And then to watch the performers on stage go, right, we're going to run with that, right? And you just you sit there. Or I sit there in awe, and I'm like, how on earth are they going to do a 7-minute segment on that, whatever that person just said? Because give me 1,000 guesses, and I would never have come up with that idea.
Right.
that someone did.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So
I'll
it's
tell you, they trust each other a lot. That's a fundamental. Isn't that interesting? And they've probably been practicing once a week and rehearsing, and they do. Improvisers practice and study their craft.
Yeah.
That's part of why they're able to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So
And then I just want to mention one more thing that we didn't talk about was this. I have this thing called the story spine that was created by a guy named Ken Adams down in San Francisco. But it's literally the structure of a story once upon a time and every day until one day because of that. It's the hero's journey. And I think it's interesting just to note, and this is a whole other area of improv you could study, but how storytelling can be done in a way efficiently and how it can, like, marketers could benefit from knowing the hero's journey is every company needs its story. Every person needs their story. Mine, I went from conservative to improv chick. Well, I had to go through this awkward phase of like, well, I'm a total jerk. Oh no. So there's just so much to learn in improv, I guess. You can study it. You don't have to do it. But take a 101 class. Why not?
Right.
Why not?
Well, and as it relates to career development or career strategy, you have to. I mean, improv is everywhere in life.
Yes.
Right? You go to the grocery store with an idea of what's going to happen, and then something.
And then there's cookies. Right. And you're like, I need those cookies.
I'll start eating better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But especially when you're in an interview.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yes.
You're trying to impress the person that you're interviewing with, or you're looking to prove that you're deserving of a promotion, and something gets thrown, you get blindsided by something.
Yeah.
So ultimately, as human beings, we deal with it every single day.
We're always improvising.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Literally.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's key too, right? To realize that we're kind of already improv
Geniuses. Pure geniuses.
I'm going to walk out of here today and I'm just going to swagger down the street. Like I'm an improv genius, people.
They'll be like, I love your purple hat. And they'll be like, I have no idea why she just said that. We're in a scene. It's great, right?
I'm totally going to say that. Okay, that's a call to action for everyone.
Tell someone that's not wearing a hat that they're wearing a hat. See what happens.
You never know. And that's the beauty of it too, right?
Well, yeah, I just want to say, because even in your example with the interview and everything, trusting yourself, trusting the other person, listening, expressing yourself. These are just those muscles are all worth working out all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Okay. This has been really fun.
Yay.
And it's been funny, right? But getting back to just it just being fun, because at the end of the day, we just need more of it.
We do. We need to play. We all have a play part of ourselves that needs to express itself.
Yeah.
And it's always there.
Yeah.
It just needs a little room to play. And we didn't think the whole time. I don't know about you. Did you not think? I didn't.
No.
Just kidding. I said
No thoughts. No thoughts.
I think it really shows.
Okay, so we have a standard set of questions.
Oh, right.
And
yes.
I have officially sprung this on Bridget because I forgot to send the email to
She's
her.
like, oh, she'll improvise through it.
She's a genius, so she'll be able to get this great. That'll be great. So let's talk about your first job.
Okay.
And what are the fundamentals that you took from that you still apply today?
Yeah, I babysat, but I'd say my first job was selling ads for the phone book at the retirement community my dad ran. No joke. This is going back to the 90s. And I think tenacity and accepting failure were two things, because I went out and I had to meet with the customers all over Olympia, Washington, where I was trying to sell ads. And I remember the Woolworths store, so this is going back a little ways. The guy basically wasn't letting me know, but Woolworths was going to close. I would find out in the next year. But I remember him very kindly saying, I just want you to know, I think you're doing a great job with your pitch, and I appreciate you coming here and talking to me. He was very kind to me, because I basically had to deal with the failure, and he wasn't really telling me why he wasn't re-upping, because he was a big client, But so I think failing with grace was one of the things, because I didn't get all, but I got new customers, so just learning that there's good and bad, and it took a lot of tenacity to be a sales lady for some.
Were you taking circus bows at that point?
I didn't know about them, actually. Didn't have a lot of coaching in that
That would have been awesome, though, in that Woolworths meeting. Just
Totally.
Circus bow.
Totally. I did do one awkwardly at a group function I just arrived at anyways, and I was introducing myself, and I misspoke because I was supposed to just answer, and I naturally just did one of my failure bows, and I was like, well, they have no idea what I just did. Hello, I'm in theater. Hello. It was great.
That's awesome.
I needed another failure bow for my failure bow.
And then it just becomes endless.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you had mentioned the truth in comedy.
Yes.
As one of your go-to books. Is there anything else that you've read, watched, or listened to lately that you'd recommend to listeners? And it doesn't have to be related to improv.
Oh, okay. Just things I think are interesting.
Yeah, we've heard the Gilmore Girls.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
I know.
No, but we definitely get the answer of the more kind of career strategy or business books. But
fair enough.
Anything.
Yeah,
anything.
I know. I probably don't read enough of those. I'm a little bit of, I'm not a big TV and movie person for some reason, but, and I've been producing a lot lately. So I'm going to talk about Truth in Comedy.
Yeah.
May I? Okay.
Absolutely.
So this book, just give it a little bit more of a pitch so people know about it. So it's from the Chicago School of Improv, or at least what people think of as the originals. And so Del Close was the leader, and John Belushi came out of there. Chevy Chase spent some time there. Chris Farley. So the reason I like this book is because it is full of condensed, useful wisdom. It's all for improv, but there's bullet points at the end of every chapter, and I'm just going to flip to one that I marked that I thought was like, this is such a great example. Key points for Chapter 3. Respect choices made by others. There are no bad ideas. There are no mistakes. Everything is justified. That's, making sense of other people's quote mistakes. Treat others as if they are poets, geniuses, and artists, and they will be. And the last one is, the best way to look good is to make your fellow players look good. It's like, this book is brilliant. It's like...
Well, that can be applied to business.
All of the above.
So in of itself is a business book.
And it goes on and on. Every chapter, you read the bullet points and you're like, wow, I need to ponder those for a little while. I'm going to be a better person today. So I won't speak to anything else. Truth in Comedy, I think, is worth just giving a big shout out to.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have that in the show notes.
Okay.
So people can go to the book club and check that out.
Yeah.
So, so you are sitting down across from 90-year-old Bridget.
Yeah.
So what would she say to you?
Well, I'm hoping she'll say that year you spent in Italy was such a good choice. Aren't you glad you have all those friends and you're fluent?
Nice.
And you ate all that cheese.
Yes.
That was a great choice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
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 Enough said. Put a period on it. Call it good.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, you had such a great time with Stacey. She's amazing.
Yeah. Good thing you and Stacey stayed in touch. Pivotal person in your life. Really magical.
She's a wise lady.
Yeah.
She's a wise lady.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll say that.
So, Bridget, this has been so fun. We want to be able to open up the door for anyone to be able to have fun with you.
Yes.
So what's the best place for future students to get in touch with you?
Right. I have bridgetquigg.com. So www.bridgetquigg.com. I'm the only Bridget Quigg in the world practically, except for women who tried to get here from Ireland in like the 1830s and didn't make it. It's like if you look online, it's all these terrible stories from boats.
But you're changing the course of the
that's
term,
right.
the name Bridget Quigg.
I'm going to keep on going.
I love that.
So bridgetquigg.com, and I have a contact page, so you can just write me a little email and I'll get it and I'll check back with you.
Which is the way that we got in touch with you.
That's right.
I love the fact that you responded.
I do respond.
It's crazy. Sometimes you fill out these online forms to contact people and then you don't hear from them. It's like a black hole.
Or for takes too long.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, how about that?
And we'll have your contact information in our show notes.
Sure.
So all people have to do
and
is
I'm
go
on
to
Twitter at Bridget Quigg. So if you want to just tweet at me, you can do that. But yeah.
Great. All right.
And I have a Facebook page you can like.
Oh, nice.
Just putting it out
okay,
there.
Go out there and like it. Check out Bridget. Funny as all heck. Learn how to do a circus bow because we really should all be taking more of those in
Why
life,
not?
right?
Totally.
Practice it every day. This has been incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacey.
Everyone get out there and improv. You need more of it in your life. Embrace it.
Creativity.
And just run with it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well said.
All right. So we will check you guys next time at thecareerq.com.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to head on over to thecareerq.com where you can get more information, show notes, and related articles to today's topic. Also, if you like what you're hearing, head on over to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, and make sure you leave us a rating and a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again.
The Career Cue is produced by Lens Group Media and recorded at the Jack Straw Cultural Center in the crunchy Seattle, Washington.
You exude fanciness.